Good evening. This is Talking Sports with Evan, and it's kind of I don't really know what to call it show. Um, I guess the news we've pretty much been waiting for pretty much since Aaron Rodgers and Randall Cobb walked off the field has kind of happened. Now, the issue still isn't resolved on if and where Aaron Rodgers will play in 2023. But based off his comments on Pat McAfee today, the door to Green Bay is looking like it is officially closed. And Aaron comments that he would like to play for the New York Jets in 2023. Very crazy to think about. And I've been trying to figure out what I've wanted to do for a show since that interview, even before that interview with McAfee, because I had a feeling that this is the direction the show was going to go. I mean, the show with McAfee was going to go. I figured Aaron would give his intentions, but the trade wouldn't be done or not. And all this is happening awfully fast now. Rodgers has his darkness retreat, comes out of the darkness retreat. Hear that the Jets have permission to talk to Rodgers. The Jets front office and coaches go out to California to meet with him. And Aaron's trying to decide what he wants to do and whatnot. And the Packers and Jets are talking about compensation. And then it seems like the Packers and Jets have the compensation done. And it's just a matter of, does Aaron want to play for the Jets? And we found out that the holdup is not Aaron Rodgers, but it is, in fact, the Packers and the Jets working out the compensation. And like I said, I've been debating internally all day what kind of show I wanted this to be. Do I want this to be a Aaron Rodgers tribute show where I thank him for all he's done and wish him luck in his future endeavors with likely the New York Jets? Do I want to go through and discuss the how we've gotten to this point? Could this have been avoided card? Do I want to bash people? Kind of things have been going through my head most of the day. And I guess I finally settled on where I want to go, and I'm going to go multiple directions. I do have Kevin Holden from CBS 58, the sports director there, joining me tomorrow night to talk some Aaron Rodgers and other sports around the area as well. The NCAA tournament starting tomorrow, which I will be talking about the NCAA tournament as well, giving you a few teams to avoid and who I think I would say a couple teams to avoid outside of the usual suspects like the 16 seeds and about 3, 4 teams that I feel had the best shot of winning it all. But at first, I'm going to start with Aaron. And I can't say I'm surprised we're here. Um, so first of all, like I said, nothing has been set in stone. Aaron has not been traded. The compensation has not been worked out yet, specifically on what the trade is or isn't going to look like. We don't know what the compensation is. But I'm going to start off with this. How did we get here? And that's that's the question, I guess, the $1 million question is how did we get from it looking like Aaron was going to be a career Packer, he's having all the fun in the world to this. And I I personally think, and I'm not using this as a shot on Goot, I personally think that when Elliot Wolf did not get the general manager job and Brian Gutekunst came in to be the general manager, I think that was the beginning of the end. I don't think Rodgers and Goot had a strong relationship. Rodgers named everyone who was working in the front office back when he was drafted, and he specifically named Elliot Wolf and spoke highly of his father too on McAfee. I think that was the beginning of the end. There was something about those two that just didn't mesh. I don't know if Rodgers, and I know the relationship has been positive overall between him and LaFleur. I don't know if that's who Rodgers truly wanted to be the head football coach when Mike McCarthy got let go. Maybe that played into a little bit on where things soured. But it just seems like after the 2018 season, or I should say during the 2018 season, that's when it seems like a lot of this stuff started to go sideways. It seemed like Rodgers was adamantly trying to get the coaching change to happen in Green Bay with McCarthy. They have a brand new GM in Gutekunst. The front office structure is now different than what it's been for the last 20 some odd years, with everybody answering to Murphy now. That was different. I don't know if Rodgers didn't try. Maybe it was Murphy Rodgers didn't trust. I don't know. But it seems like since Gutekunst took over as GM, communication has been lacking between a lot of parties. That's kind of the gist I'm getting. And Rodgers talks about how the veterans are treated. The Packers would rather get rid of you a year too early than a year too late. And I completely agree with that that philosophy 100%. But maybe they don't communicate it the best. He specifically brought up Jordy Nelson. And when the Packers notified Nelson that they were releasing him, making him a free agent, I guess Nelson was willing to come back for a pay cut, but they didn't give him that option. They just said, Jordy, thank you for the memories, but we got to move on. And I think that actually right there was the beginning of the end. Not saying they weren't wrong in my opinion of moving on from your Randall Cobbs and your Jordy Nelson and trying to get younger. But I think the way they handled that situation was the writing on the wall for Aaron Rodgers to say, this place isn't loyal. They will turn on you in a heartbeat if they see fit. And I think that's where he kind of started the posturing on getting out of town. And then they draft Jordan Love, which I get. I understand why they drafted Jordan Love. Better draft a quarterback early than have to wait. Then you're stuck in quarterback purgatory as you try to force yourselves to drafting a good player, and then that guy doesn't work out, then you have to draft another. That guy doesn't work out, then you got to draft another. Look at the Jets are in this situation for this reason that the Jets are in the situation that the Packers are trying to avoid. Because you've had Matt Sanchez, you've had Sam Darnold, you've had Zach Wilson, you had Chad Pennington, the Jets have never really had a franchise quarterback. Joe Namath, I guess, but overall, like he's not as good as what we hype him up to be as a player. He's not an all-time great player. He got the Jets a Super Bowl win, and that's about it. You look at his career numbers, it's not that good. The Jets have never had a franchise quarterback. Their best two quarterbacks they've had in the last probably 20 some odd years was Brett Favre and Ryan Fitzpatrick. Favre then had his torn tricep muscle that hurt his numbers, that made the Jets end up missing the playoffs that year pre-Sanchez. But the Jets are in this situation they're in right now that they're trying to trade for future Hall of Famer Aaron Rodgers, because they can't draft and develop quarterbacks. They just can't. And the Packers are trying to avoid that type of situation. Because you struck out on one, and I'm not saying Jordan Love's going to hit. I'm not saying he isn't going to hit. We don't know what Jordan Love's going to be yet. I'm excited to see what he's going to be. But the Jets are stuck in cement when it comes to trying to find a quarterback. And Zach Wilson, awful. And I hope that he is not included in this trade to Green Bay. He is just awful. But I think those were the release of Nelson and not re-signing Cobb, the drafting of Jordan Love. I think that is where Rodgers started to fall out of favor with the front office, and the front office started to fall out of favor with him. Then we saw the last 3 springs of Rodgers, to the point that now Rodgers is asking or saying that he's willing to play for the New York Jets, as opposed to Green Bay, where he's called home for the last 18 years. I'm curious to see what happens with it, but I think that's where the whole thing started. And if they kept Nelson around, does that change things? Maybe. But maybe the team is good enough in 2018 that they don't let Mike McCarthy go, and that was time to go. So I guess that's where the problem started. And now who's to blame? To be honest, the Packers front office and Aaron Rodgers are both to blame. The fact that it's gotten to this point that now Rodgers is willing to be traded to the Jets, go follow in Brett Favre's footsteps, go be traded to the Jets and finish his career potentially in New York, I think both sides are to blame. And I'm going to start with the Packers side because I kind of already went in a little bit with the Rodgers side. I'm going to get more into that in a second. But the Packers won the Super Bowl in 2010. They had Charles Woodson. They had Cullen Jenkins. They had Howard Green, Clay Matthews. Nick Barnett got hurt that year. So they had Desmond Bishop. They had A.J. Hawk. They had Tramon Williams, Sam Shields, Nick Collins on defense. Offensively, they were stacked. This Packer team should have been a dynasty. That's how much talent they had. But they let Cullen Jenkins go after they won the Super Bowl. Desmond Bishop can't stay healthy. Nick Collins has a career-ending neck injury. They used to draft wide receivers all the time. That's why you had Donald Driver, Greg Jennings, Jordy Nelson, James Jones, Jermichael Finley, all on the same team. Randall Cobb. You had those guys all on the same team because the Packers kept refilling the wide receiver room. But after they drafted Davante Adams, they stopped drafting wide receivers until it was too late. And then they had that Malachi Dupree, I think his name was, that draft class where those guys didn't really work out anybody there. Then your MVS, your Jamon Moore, and your EQ draft class. EQ couldn't stay healthy. Jamon Moore was a total bust. MVS couldn't catch the ball and couldn't stay healthy either. The Packers front office dropped the ball. And part of that falls on Ted Thompson. A lot of that, to me, falls on Mark Murphy. Mark Murphy, he has made the Packers a lot of money with his Titletown districts and all that, but he missed clear signs that Ted Thompson was having. He missed clear signs, in my opinion, that Ted Thompson was unfit for the job with his health deteriorating. But he kept Ted Thompson in that position. Dorsey left. McKenzie left. Schneider left. They all left to be general managers of their own team, Seattle and Oakland and Kansas City and Cleveland. They all left. And Thompson didn't do a good job after they left listening to the people around him. Snyder was a big reason, I think, why they drafted Aaron Rodgers. So Thompson didn't trust the people around him. His health is deteriorating. Murphy's too focused on the business side where he's losing. He's not realizing what's going on inside the general manager's office. I think those all played huge roles. They've struggled repeatedly to fill the safety position of Nick Collins. Nick Collins gets hurt, and they're still working to try to fill that position. Savage is the most recent failure of that position. Amos added some stability. Baha Clinton Dix lasted 2 years as a good pro before he fell apart. Savage, maybe a half a year before he fell off a cliff. They wait too long to try to fix problems, and when they do, they can't seem to get it right. Safety position, the defensive line position has been in flux since they let Cullen Jenkins go. Some reason they think you can just have one good defensive lineman and everything else will fall into place. So they kept Dom Capers around too long. And I don't necessarily blame Dom Capers for the failures of the defense between the year, his last, basically since 2011 season on until his last year. I don't blame Dom Capers per se for those defensive failures. I put that on McCarthy for keeping him around too long, and I put that on Thompson for not giving Capers the pieces that he needs to run his style of defense. Yes, part of that falls on Capers. He needs to adjust the scheme for the personnel that he has, but it's almost like after 2011 Super Bowl, after when they beat the Pittsburgh Steelers in February of 2011, the 2010 season, it's like they decided that we don't have to worry about the defense anymore. The offense is going to outscore everybody so bad that the defense can just worry about getting sacks and things like forcing turnovers. But when they can't get sacks and they can't get turnovers, the defense can't put together enough stops. And that's what happened in the one loss of the regular season against Kansas City. They couldn't make stops in Kansas City defensively, got physical at the line of scrimmage with the receivers, and made the blueprint on how to beat the Packers offense as the New York Giants in the divisional round of the playoffs after the 15-1 regular season of the Packers. The Giants used that Kansas City blueprint, rushed 4 against Rodgers, and they had a pretty stout pass rush at the time, got physical at the line of scrimmage with the receivers, and dumped everybody else in the coverage. And the Packers couldn't move the football. Next thing you know, they get completely blown out by the Giants. So when we talk about they didn't give Rodgers enough help, yes, I get that he had some of the best receivers in Packer history on his team at some point. But there were years in between there where the offensive line could have been better. The tight end position has pretty much been a hot mess since Jermichael Finley's injury. This defense has been a hot mess pretty much since Nick Collins' injury, and even before Nick Collins' injury, the defense in 2011 was not playing well. So, yeah, the front office of Green Bay could have done more to better help the Packers get to the Super Bowl. But Ted Thompson's thing was, we have Aaron Rodgers. We have a shot to win it every single year. And that was apparently good enough for Murphy. Murphy was fine making the playoffs every year, making money hand over fist up to that point. And one of my friends, Scott, he brought this up on Facebook a while back, and he was definitely right about it. Is you're not really going to see some of the changes you needed to see really until it's too late. Because as long as they're selling out Lambeau Field, as long as they're winning games in the regular season, everybody from the board of directors to the team president to the general manager is complacent. They had chances to pull that trigger to better put them in position to win another Super Bowl, and they didn't. Tony Gonzalez, they refused to go from a 4th to a 3rd round pick. Marshawn Lynch, they ended up not, and granted, I'm fine they didn't get Lynch, but that's just another example. Do they win some more Super Bowls if Lynch at the running game? Instead, you did what you could with Ryan Grant before he got hurt, and then James Starks. And James Starks, he wasn't a long-term option. Lynch, you at least would have had a long-term option at running back. It's like they never wanted to pull that trigger to make that big move because the draft picks were too important. And draft picks are important. You win in the NFL by draft and development. That's how you win. But what puts you over the top is being willing to pull that trigger. So like when they brought in Ryan Pickett and Charles Woodson, when they brought in Howard Green off the street when they were willing to start Desmond Bishop, Sam Shields, Tremont Williams. Those are what propelled Green Bay to that Super Bowl in 2010. But it's almost, they brought in Julius Peppers, but they didn't put people around the rest of the defense. The middle linebacker position up until recently has been a complete disaster in Green Bay. Bishop and Hawk were great middle linebackers for a very short time in Green Bay together before Bishop got injured. But then you kept putting complete garbage practically next to A.J. Hawk for the rest of Hawk's career at middle linebacker. Brad Jones was a definition of look like Tarzan, play like Jane. He was a definition of that. And then you bring Kirksey in. Then you got lucky and you have Devondre Campbell now, and now you got Quay Walker in the middle linebacker position. Looks fine. Mike Wall said it best on the show too. The Packers don't fix problems, and they wait too long to fix problems. So yes, I put a lot of the blame on why we're here right now in 15 years of starting quarterback play by Aaron Rodgers. We didn't win more than one Super Bowl. Seattle was a complete disaster, and there's a lot of things that if a couple things go differently, they go to the Super Bowl and likely beat New England. And coaching was a big reason for that. And that should have been the beginning of the end for McCarthy and Dom Capers and company. They wait too long to fix the special teams position. They lost to San Francisco in the divisional round at Lambeau Field back in the 2022 season, 2021 season, so 2022 playoff game, because the special teams couldn't block on a punt. They couldn't block up front on a field goal. They couldn't cover a return guy to open the second half against the 49ers. And that's where I put the blame on the front office and the coaching, is they wait too long to try to fix things, and it's too late when they realize it's a problem. And I put a lot of that on Murphy. Murphy changed the front office structure when he moved on from Thompson, that everybody answers to him. We lost out on a very good special teams coach and Murphy and LaFleur's first season because Murphy didn't want to pay him. We stuck around too long with Mike Pettin because Murphy didn't want to pay him to go away. And I think we stuck around with Aaron Rodgers for 1 or 2 years too long because Murphy didn't want to do the plan that Goody had in place. And I think Goody's a very good general manager. I think he's done some very good things in Green Bay. When he took over, the bottom of the roster was awful. His second year, in Green Bay, he brings in the Smiths, he brings in Amos, he brings in Billy Turner. And that was a big reason why they went 13-3 2 years in a row and 13-4 in year 3, is those moves that Goody made. But there were some things that was unforeseen that happened that kind of stalled the momentum of Goody building this roster. And COVID was a big piece because they didn't have the money on hand to pay a lot of cash up front on these contracts between the Aaron Rodgers extension pre-COVID and then no fans in attendance for an entire season. And then the salary cap for the first time dropping. That stalled a lot of the momentum that Goody was putting into place to try to build a roster. And yes, I know he can't draft in the third round. Everybody knows that. And it's not even a Goody thing. Thompson had a lot of swings and misses in the third round too. Just not his round for some reason. I don't know why. But I think Goody does a good job at general managing, except communication is probably not his best suit. And I get you don't answer to your quarterback, but I don't think it's a bad thing to keep your franchise quarterback in the loop on what you want done. And then I blame Rodgers too. Packers had opportunities to get back to the Super Bowl where Rodgers didn't play well. That game against Seattle where 80 million things went wrong, Rodgers didn't play well that game either. The championship game against the Falcons to run the table, which granted I get they probably overachieved big time that year. Rodgers didn't play well in the NFC Championship game that year. He didn't play well in the championship game against San Francisco out in San Fran in year one of LaFleur. He didn't play well against Tampa Bay at Lambeau Field either. He had the ball 3 times after 3 Tom Brady interceptions and got 6 points out of it. I think it was 6 points. But anyways, so he didn't step up to the plate when it mattered most at times. So when I say there's blame to go all the way around, I mean there's blame to go all the way around. I think Murphy's been around too long, but hey, as long as the Packers are making money hand over foot, the board of directors are perfectly fine with letting the clock run out on Murphy where he has to retire, I think, in 2025, I think it is. We're fine with Goot as long as they're winning 13 games a year. We're fine with the lack of communication from the general manager to the star players. We're fine with that. And we were fine with Aaron Rodgers up until recently, his passive-aggressive actions that annoyed a good chunk of the fan base. But here we are. New quarterback, Jordan Love, starting quarterback next year. And I'm grateful for everything I've seen the Packers do during the Aaron Rodgers era. I've been a Packer fan as long as I can remember. I remember the Don Majkowski days. I remember Anthony Dilwig, Mike Tomczak starting games at quarterback for Green Bay when Majkowski was in and out of the lineup, injured all the time. Brett Favre changed all that when he came to Green Bay. And since Brett Favre got here in 1992 as his first year starting, remember that week 2 against the Bengals, Majkowski hurts his ankle scrambling towards the sideline. And the rest, as they say, is history. Favre started every game possible in a Packer uniform until the NFC Championship game in the 2007 season. And then they moved on to Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers is back-to-back Hall of Fame caliber quarterback in Green Bay. We've seen a lot of great quarterbacking in Green Bay, and I think Jordan Love is ready to be that guy. He's not going to be a Brett Favre or a Jordan Love, but I think he's ready to be an NFL starting quarterback. And I think expectation-wise, we have to understand that this coming season will likely be closer to the 2008 season when the Packers went 6-10, as opposed to Rodgers' second year when they made the playoffs. And the rest, as they say, was history. It's got to be patient. I think Jordan Love is that guy. Rodgers speaks highly of him. He spoke highly of him today on Pat McAfee's show. And I think he can be that guy. We just got to be patient. You need reps in game action to get better, and he hasn't had a lot of in-game action reps due to his rookie year basically being eliminated because of COVID and getting injured in his second year in the preseason. This season was the only extended action that he really had in the preseason, and he made major strides, and he's shown a lot of improvement. And I think the quarterback position might be okay. We might just have a down year in 2023 why we retool. But as much as it's painful, as much as hard as it is to see Rodgers go, because he's been the face of this franchise for the last 15 years. He's been in Green Bay for 18 years, the longest tenured Packer in the history of the franchise. It's not a bad thing that it's moving on from Rodgers. Moving on from Rodgers, what you're doing is you're going to take a bit of a hit this season, salary cap wise. I think it's an $8 million immediate hit on this year's cap with Rodgers leaving. But you clear a lot of room for next year and the following year. You're getting out of being stuck in purgatory, being stuck in just being good enough to make the playoffs, but not quite good enough to get to the Super Bowl. Having Love take over a quarterback, if that is the long-term guy, because we'll see what happens after this season if that is going to be the long-term guy, you're clearing out a lot of money that you can make moves to try to improve your franchise even more. So it sucks, it stinks, but it's going to be okay. As long as, Goody shows that he is a good general manager, which his first couple years he showed that he really was. And then you had the weird 2020, 2021 season where you had no fans in attendance and the salary cap actually went down. We'll see once they get this cleaned up a little bit, what the future of the Green Bay Packers look like. I wish if the trade does go through or whatever happens to Rodgers in 2023, I wish him well. I wish him luck. But, I'm also going to wish and cheer for the Packers, continuing to cheer for the Packers moving forward, because that's who I am. I'm a Packer fan. And what are the Packers going to get for Aaron Rodgers? I really don't know anymore. I don't think they're getting multiple first-round picks for him at this point. I don't think that's doable. What I think they could get is maybe pick 13. That's what I think they really want, is that pick 12 or 13 in the draft in the first round. I think they end up getting a second this year and a conditional third or fourth for next year and maybe a player. The Jets have some more work to do to make room to get Rodgers and bring people in to put the best team forward. Corey Davis, wide receiver, is making a lot of money out in New York, who they don't really need anymore since you got Allen Lazard and likely Randall Cobb coming in with Garrett Wilson. So I'm guessing they're going to probably include either Elijah Moore, which you won't need if Cobb's involved, or Davis. I think one of those two might come back to Green Bay. But like I said, I hope Zach Wilson is not included in this deal, because Zach Wilson has not shown the ability to be willing and able to put the work in to be a starting quarterback in this league. Zach Wilson looks like he loves what being a quarterback in the NFL brings you, but he doesn't want to put the work in to stay in the NFL long term. And his work ethic was questioned big time by the coaching staff last year in New York. I don't think he has what it takes up here to succeed. With Jordan Love, all you hear about is how great his work ethic is. So tomorrow, Kevin Holden from CBS 58 will join me as we continue to talk Aaron Rodgers. He's going to have some great insight to bring on that. Heard there's a fun Brett Favre story in there. And we'll see how that show goes tomorrow. But before I do let you guys go, I did promise some NCAA tournament talk, and I figure I should deliver. So looking over the first round, here are teams you should avoid making a deep run. San Diego State. They make the tournament every year, but guess what? They bow out early every year. So you might want to avoid San Diego State. Virginia, I'm not sold on this Virginia team this year. Purdue, I wouldn't have them going very far if I were you. Their guards are very young, and they're going to have a hard time matching up against some of these teams in the tournament. Tennessee, I'm not sold on. They always seem to be regular season paper champs, but come postseason play, they struggle. Kentucky, I wouldn't trust this year. Kansas State, I don't trust this year. Xavier, I don't trust this year. Never pick Iowa. Fran McCaffrey, I would even pick Iowa to lose in the first round, because Fran McCaffrey doesn't do well in the tournament. I don't think he's ever made it out of the first round of the tournament. Plus, I don't like Fran McCaffrey, to be perfectly honest. I'm not a fan of McCaffrey at all. UCLA, I would avoid right now with their injuries. I just think it's too much to overcome. So teams that could and should have a great chance at winning it all. UConn, I think, has a very good chance of winning it all. They're a very talented team this year. Kansas, they have a great opportunity to win it again. Oh, yeah, I forgot about Gonzaga. Don't pick Gonzaga to win. They might make it in Final Four, but they're not winning the tournament. I think Marquette has a good shot at winning it all. And my pick is Texas. I think Texas, there's just something about Texas that with an interim coach, they're playing great basketball. And I think they are a team that could make some damage in the tournament. Alabama's another team that I have a good feeling about too in this year's tournament as well. And then Houston, don't pick Houston to win it all. They always do great in the regular season, but then come postseason play, they just don't do well. So with that said, thank you all for watching. For those that stuck around and watched, again, Kevin Holden from CBS 58 will be joining the show tomorrow night. And I'm excited to talk to him and get his perspective on what is happening in Green Bay. And we might talk some Brewer baseball and Bucks basketball as well. So with that said, thank you so much. And again, if you're looking for tickets, go to my Facebook page. My Facebook page or my Twitter account at Evan Witt Sports. Click on the link in my bio and click on TickPick, and you're going to get fee-free tickets. So if the ticket says you're paying $51, you're paying $51 plus whatever the state income tax is there. You're not paying any of these other processing fees that all these other ticket people have. So check it out. Get to a Brewers game, get to a Bucks game, get to a concert, whatever. Do it through TickPick in my link in my bio on Twitter at Evan Witt Sports. It's right here. So sorry, I get confused sometimes with the camera. It's right here. Evan Witt Sports. So I will talk to you all tomorrow. Have a great night, and I will talk to you later.